Ms. Kuster, 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being with us. I just want to take exception to my colleague, Mr. McKinley, suggesting that this is politically motivated. The health and well-being of my constituents is not politically motivated, and I think we can find common ground. But in New Hampshire, we've been dealing with a St. Gobain's site in Litchfield that's in my district, which was pollution by PFAS, the per and polyfluorinated compounds. And fortunately, we have had a settlement, but we had to spend millions of dollars to connect 2.4 million as well as 900,000 in loans and 600,000 in grants to connect these households to safe drinking water because their wells were contaminated. It's not political. The wells didn't distinguish between R's and D's. These are my constituents, and I'm trying to keep them safe. And my question for you, I've been disappointed by the EPA's PFAS action plan that was published last week because it doesn't seem to actually include much action. For instance, while EPA officials said that they intend to move forward to maximum contaminant levels for 2 PFAS chemicals, there was no commitment in the plan to initiating this regulatory process. And that means other communities are going to be left to rely on health advisories that may or may not keep my colleagues' constituents safe. What can your office do to help communities that are being poisoned by PFAS in the air, water, and soil? And I know you are putting a great deal of reliance on voluntary disclosure, but what makes you think that companies are going to voluntarily take on this responsibility when, in fact, that was not the case for us? They had to be caught in the act through testing and through local community efforts before the company came to the table to negotiate a settlement.
Thank you. First, on the PFAS action plan that the administrator announced, maybe it was a little over a week ago, he very clearly makes a commitment to initiate the regulatory process.
And what's the timeline for that?
That I don't know, but I'd have to take that back because that's not.
Because there's urgency to this. This PFAS is showing up in water, groundwater, all across this country.
And can you tell me the name again of the site that you're talking about?
It's
I'm
Litchfield, New Hampshire,
Base, but I'm not.
St. Gobain's.
Oh, okay.
They used to make Teflon in pans, and it's gone into the water.
Okay.
And we have hundreds of families. They were on bottled water for a long period of time, and now we've, to the expense of millions of dollars, we've had to connect them to safe drinking water.
So one of the things that actually my office is involved in is developing a map, a GIS map, where we would identify on the map all of the locations where we might expect PFAS contamination to be. Because remember when they did the unregulated contaminant monitoring for PFAS that ended that was part of the 2015 round of monitoring, they found it above the health advisory in 1.3% of the public water systems and found it at any detection level in about 4%. But that doesn't capture communities with under 10,000 hookups. So we want the map so you can go and look, has there been a firefighting center there? Is there an industry where they've been using the PFAS? So again, for the very purpose that you talked about, which is targeting so people can go then and do the testing.
Well, let me ask you, is there any enforceable requirement to report a PFAS release? They know, the companies that use this technology, use these chemicals, know. I mean, they're well aware of the plume right under their facilities and their sites. In the end, St. Gobain's did come to the table, and we were able to negotiate. But why don't you rely on them? Why do you do this whole mapping and not just have a requirement, an enforceable requirement that the company has to come forward?
That is another action that's in the PFAS action plan, which is to add PFOA and PFAS, and again, this is another office that would do this. It's a regulatory action, but add it to the toxics release inventory, which then would mandate the reporting of release.
And what's the timeline for that?
Again, I'd have to answer for the record because it's not my office.
Well, I just want to put on the record the
Right.
urgency of families that are being exposed, and I want to thank the Moms Clean Air Action for being with us today, and for families all across this country who care about their children and the quality. These are families that are drinking the water, and it's not just Flint, Michigan. It's my district, it's every district across this country, and I urge you to bring some urgency to this, and with that, I yield back.
Chair now recognizes the gentleman